Hello everyone, welcome back to another deck profile with me, Chocobilly. This week I'm going to be looking at is what is quite simply a Lightning Water FFBE deck. So it's not just FFBE, there are other elements to it as well, such as the Griffin Knights combo package, I guess you'd call it. And as you can imagine, because of that, heavy use of crystals as well. In fact, it's more crystal than it is either of the other two, because you've obviously got young Excenmille using crystals, and then you have got Glaciella using crystals as well. So a very, very crystal heavy package. Nothing too flashy, to be honest with you, but it's still a lot of fun to play, and I'll show you why. So we'll go backups and summons and forwards. So backups, class 6 Moogle, Lightning, Water, that's why. 2 ninjas, 3 oracles. The reason being that there is slightly less water backups than there are lightning, or rather slightly less crystal generating water backups. So on top of the oracle, we also have the astrologian, who looks at top 3 cards, and then got 2 paladins who get 2 crystal and also 3 or less cards. So it gets you a card if you have 3 or less backups. And then we have ninja, Red Mage, again the same as the ninja effectively, but then we've got also Elise. So Elise is just a little extra tech play in there because of the fact that you're going to be using a fair amount of S's in this deck. So being able to use an S ability, play Elise, get that same card, and use it again is quite nice. Now this obviously only really works with cards you have 3 of, because you'd have to have the card in the field to be able to use the S ability. You'd have to have the card in the break zone for Elise to be able to search it, and then obviously you need the search target. So yeah, it's not incredible, but it's a card I wanted to test out with Elise anyway. So yeah, and it wasn't too bad. You probably want to go for more some sort of recursion anyway, but just a card I wanted to test out. And it actually worked quite well, to be fair. So looking onto the summons, so Cuchulainn the Impure, because it's Cuchulainn the Impure, very, very useful. EX Burst, blank something, gets rid of their protection, and you're going to be wanting to get rid of protection because it's a very offense-heavy deck. Odin, so we've got 2 of this Odin and 3 of this one. There are 3 of the Lightning Water Lightnings in this deck, so you want a few Odins as well. This Odin being able to break monsters, though, ultimately is very important. The chances of you being able to draw a card because of 5 lightning characters is slim, but it can be done. But either way, just, yeah, being able to break a forward or monster of 4 or less is, to be honest, the fact that monsters are included in there is supremely important. So yeah, very, very good card because of that. Anima, removing things is always good. And Leviathan, because it's Leviathan. Bouncing stuff, being able to get back your S cards as well, because 90% of the forwards are water forwards, so you'll be able to get them back with this dude. Oh yeah, just if you have to, getting rid of light or dark stuff even. Anyway, moving on to the crux of the deck. So I'll kind of go a bit out of order and talk about the important cards first. So naturally we've got from Elder, as Glaciella even, Wazette, who is able to spend a crystal instead of an S ability, and then pay 1 water, 1 colors, choose a forward, deal 2,000, or, you know, just use the crystals for any FFBE cards with S abilities. So, those are not from Elder, not Onion Knight, where are you? Ramada. So there's Ramada. So when she enters the field, she can bounce her forward, but also she gains crystal. So that means if you've got Glaciella on the field but no crystals, at least you can use that. Now, I really like Ramada because ultimately she comes onto the field, you pay her S ability, which is just an S, so that means it's just a crystal with Glaciella, and you get to haste, deal 2 damage to your opponent, and she becomes a 9k. So that's, you know, pretty significant. To be able to do that and come out of the blue is quite nice. Now, that's something that's actually quite interesting about this deck, is that it's obviously lightning, which means that, you know, there's going to be some elements of haste in there, but actually you can use some water elements of haste as well, and Ramada is one of them. Then we have O. So, yeah, O. So it's an S, a lightning, a colorless, and choose one forward of 5 or less, break it, gain a crystal. And honestly, this card is surprisingly good because it has an Illua effect of when during each turn, when it was chosen by opponent summons abilities for the first time on that turn, cancel its effect. So outside of board wipes, it's actually quite hard to get rid of, because any form of targeted removal, basically, because they have to target him twice. It's not the hardest thing to do, but ultimately it means that your opponent has to invest twice in killing him. He enters the field, he gains a crystal as well, which means that you can have, again, Glaciella on the field, no crystals. You play O, gain a crystal. As long as you've got that 2 CP to be able to pay for his S ability, you then get to break a forward of 5 or less, which is surprisingly good. And surprisingly effective, or consistent as well if you've got enough crystals and Glaciella. And that's actually it for the FFBE forwards that can use S abilities. You've got Glaciella as well, obviously herself, and her effect is incredibly strong, as everyone knows. There were more in this deck, but I didn't actually like them. Like, there was the, is it Mid, who revealed cards and got you a multi-element to hand, could deal damage basically is either 7 or 10 if you control the multi-element, but I wasn't actually that huge of a fan of it because we've only got Lightning and we've only got Onion Knight. There were more in the original build, but it wasn't fun enough, so I took them out. And therefore took Mid out as well, because she was very mid. But ultimately, just having Glaciella, O, and Fromelda is enough, to be honest with you. Now, obviously Glaciella, it's a 3-cost water forward, which means that she is searchable off of Young Excenmille. And Young Excenmille is a very good card, but he's very slow. And that's one of the problems. Yes, he can become, you know, hard to hit with his pay crystal ability, but that doesn't necessarily make him good. Now, a card that has just, like, made this deck a whole other beast was Sky Serpent, General Rugadine. So, being able to just Young Excenmille onto the field, Sky Serpent onto the field, go to combat, your opponent immediately has to assess or weigh up their options of, do I kill Sky Serpent and hopefully, you know, don't see another one of him, or, you know, get rid of what they have in hand. Depends on the element they're in ultimately. But being able to Sky Serpent to attack with him immediately, and then either give haste to Young Excenmille, and then you can attack with him. Obviously, he'll have Brave as well. Attack with him, and then pay the 1 to then play another forward onto the field is hilarious. And then if they stay on the field, if Young Excenmille's on the field a turn before Sky Serpent, you can go Young Excenmille, then play Sky Serpent, use Young Excenmille's effect to then attack. Actually, you could even go... No, you couldn't. Sorry, I was about to be stupid. Yeah, but ultimately, Young Excenmille to use his effect to then search something onto the field, to then attack with Sky Serpent, to then give that other forward haste as well. So, the forwards that Young Excenmille can search are a single Tidus. Probably worth making a 2 of, given the fact that it's very much a win con and it's a very strong card. Glaciella Zet, obviously. Fromelda. So this was a bit of a weird one, and I appreciate that. You could definitely take this card out and put something better in there. Probably just 2 more Tidus. But I wanted to put it in for the main reason of it's got a alright EX burst if it's hit at damage 3, but if your opponent does take you to damage 5 and you get Fromelda and Sky Serpent on the field, that's actually quite nasty, because of the fact that she enters the field, you're minus 7k something, you attack with Sky Serpent, give Fromelda haste, she then attacks, and you get to choose a character your opponent controls, put it in the break zone. And the fact that it's character is what really makes that important to me. You can get rid of a monster, you can get rid of a backup, it's just very fun, so I really enjoy that card. So having just, you could probably drop it down to 1 of, if at the very least. But still, a really fun card to have in a deck where your opponent isn't expecting you to be going hard fast. Then we have Onion Knight, another really good card. Now, obviously it's a water forward, it's lightning forward as well, but it is a water forward, which means that it is searchable off of Young Excenmille. Comes onto the field, bounces something. If something's taken damage, you can break it. Chances of something having taken damage is pretty slim, to be honest with you, unless you've used something like Glaciella was S ability without killing something, which would be unusual. Yeah, most of the time Onion Knight is going to be bouncing something. Obviously when it dies, you can pay 1 to then search another of itself to play that onto the field, and that's actually really good. So one of the reasons I like Onion Knight so much as well is that if you do decide to go into Sky Serpent straight into Young Excenmille, you play Young Excenmille, or sorry, you attack with Young Excenmille because he's got Brave and Haste. You then dull him to search out Onion Knight. You then can move something out of the way as well. Yes, chances are Excenmille wasn't going to die because 1, he's got his crystal ability, and 2, he's also buffed by probably 3k. But ultimately, being able to move a blocker out of the way, being able to take your opponent to what was 6, now 7, you know, is really good. So being able to just flash him out and then have this persistent forward as well, so if it does die, it keeps on coming back, is a lot of fun. If you do see a lot of Onion Knight early on, it's not amazing, but even then, being able to search something and just be able to play what is a decent sized blocker and potentially bounce as well is very fun, and I've always got a lot of time for this Onion Knight. Onion Knights tend to be very weird cards, but this one I think is probably the most solid of them all. And then, obviously, Young Rahal enters the field, gives you 2 crystals, very important for both Excenmille and Glaciella. But yeah, when he enters the field, being able to gain plus 2k and then be able to attack and give plus 2k as well. If you do that and Young Rahal is your target for a Sky Serpent, then your field is buffed by 4k, not to mention that Young Rahal will be buffed by 3k, and Brave, First Strike, Haste through Sky Serpent as well. So yeah, there's obviously a lot you can do there, but just getting the crystals, that many crystals in one go, is pretty important, to be honest with you. I did have a game where I had, I think, like 8 crystals in one go, which might sound ridiculous. It actually stalled me a turn or two. Didn't win me the game, but it stalled me a turn or two. And then I'm going to go back up to the top because we glossed over many of these forwards, but Lady Lilith. So one of the better crystal users in Lightning. You can remove a forward other than Lady Lilith from the game to gain a crystal. So obviously if you've got any forwards that you don't care about, that's quite good. And this is actually kind of fun if you use Young Excenmille and you bring in the Onion Knight. So not many of the other forwards have entry effects other than like Frame Elder. Obviously, depending on the build of the deck, you could change that. But being able to use a Young Excenmille to bring in Onion Knight to bounce something, and then Lady Lilith to remove the Onion Knight and gain a crystal, and then potentially kill something is quite nice. But, you know, anything that Excenmille brings in, you can remove with Lady Lilith, which is fun. Then you can pay a lightning, choose one lightning forward, it gains haste until the end of the turn, so you can use this ability once per turn, and this is where things can again get a bit janky and really, really fun. So, you go, let's say you've got Lady Lilith on the field and maybe 2 crystals. No, maybe 3 crystals because you need that many. Anyway, you can Young Excenmille, Sky Serpent, go to combat. Sky Serpent to attack, to target Young Excenmille. Young Excenmille attacks, dull, bring out Onion Knight enters. You can then give him haste with Lady Lilith. You've paid, 6 for 2 forwards, and you've managed to get 3 attacks off with, well, you've also paid 1 water for Young Excenmille's ability, and then, 1 crystal, 2 crystals. I mean, that's perfectly fine in my opinion. Probably used a 3rd crystal, actually, to make Young Excenmille bigger. But my point is the fact that out of nowhere, you can go quite fast, and I really, really like that. And then, theoretically, if you've got enough of them in the break zone, you can then bring Lightning out by removing a Lightning and Odin, and then dull something away, draw a card, and, yeah, just go for game. So, this deck can go surprisingly fast, and it's just, it really is a lot of fun. Like I said, cards like Framelda probably need to come out. But then again, you got Ramada as well, who can also go pretty fast. And then, shouldn't forget about Shuzelt, should we? I forgot that I put him in it. And yeah, he's obviously another FFB forward that can also use his S ability through Glaciella. You have to pay 2 lightning though, but choose one damage forward, break it. When something's it's only when a lightning character enters the field. But again, if you're using Young Excenmille and you bring in Onion Knight again, that does technically trigger a damage point, at which point you can then pay a crystal, 2 lightning, choose a damage forward, break it. Now, unfortunately, you cannot use Shuzelt and Onion Knight with Onion Knight's effect, because Onion Knight enters the field, that triggers Shuzelt, who can then deal something point damage. However, it's upon Onion Knight entering that you have to choose a damage forward. And obviously, Shuzelt's effect hasn't resolved yet, so therefore you cannot break the damage forward, which is a damn shame. But it's still quite fun. So, yeah, there is theoretically a situation where Shuzelt has damaged something and then Onion Knight comes in and breaks it, but chances are it's not going to happen. Either way, it's another S ability. I never use Shuzelt, as you can imagine. That doesn't mean to say that he wouldn't be okay in there. No, he's just a crap card. Take him out. He doesn't need to be in here. Put another probably water forward in that is searchable off of Young Excenmille. If not, something that is pretty fast or something that's problematic. But ultimately, yeah, you could break a damage forward, maybe. It's nice that it's unmitigated. But again, chances of damaging something is very slim because you've got Glaciella, you've got Shuzelt, and you've got something taking damage through just combat. So, yeah, not amazing. Gone over Ramada, and Sky Serpent. Now, Sky Serpent, when you attack, obviously you get to divvy out your effects, which is quite nice. Now, you can obviously use Young Excenmille and to dull him and then bring something else in, but unfortunately there's no situation where you can attack, give Young Excenmille Brave, and then the forward Excenmille would bring in the haste of the first strike, sadly. But it's still worth noting that you need to obviously assign the abilities correctly, because one, just giving something enough power to not die is very important. And honestly, buffing Sky Serpent a lot of the time. If you're using something and you just want to, you know, give something haste, but you're not going to buff it like outside of it being killed, you should probably just buff Sky Serpent, because, you know, just being able to deal 10k, 12k even these days isn't even that hard. But just trying to make it that he survives is important, because this card is really good and really, really actually strengthens this deck. Take out Shuzel, put another Sky Serpent in, because he is very strong. Yes, it's another light card with no S ability, but it's one worth playing. Your opponent wants to get rid of it as soon as possible. Playing another one immediately after it dies ain't too bad, to be honest with you. And yeah, that's this deck. Oh yeah, got a Limit Break deck. Leo's fine, Cloud's fine, Tidus is right. Tidus and Sky Serpent, again, really good friends, because being able to play Tidus onto the field, get rid of, you know, some problematic cards, draw some cards as well, then play Sky Serpent, give him haste, you know, stuff like that. Nyx is a fun card to play, actually, if you are using something like Onion Knight. So let's say Onion Knight dies to something, you then play another Onion Knight onto the field. You can then play Nyx onto the field for only one, which is good. And then you've got Edge. There aren't really enough lightning cards in the deck to make it warrant it being in here. That being said, it's always worth having one, because if you're in a situation where actually, you know, lightning attacking and Onion Knight attacking can move something out of the way, then it's worth doing. Theoretically as well, it could be lightning and another water forward, but lightning's still a lightning forward, so therefore she would still trigger Edge's effect. And again, Edge coming onto the field, buffing everything, or making it so that everything that attacks deals 7k, using Lady Lilith to then give Edge haste as well, so then Edge would also deal 7k to something. It's quite nice. So yeah, there are lots of different means here, and to be honest with you, being able to play any of these onto the field, something like Leo or a cheap Nyx, and then removing it to gain a crystal with Lady Lilith is very nice. And when I mentioned earlier that I had 8 crystals and it stalled me a turn, it was Lady Lilith. I had just happened to be in a situation where I'd had 8 crystals. I think I'd played like 2 ninjas, an oracle, a paladin, and then probably something like Glaciella and Ramada, potentially. And yeah, just being able to get that many crystals and then play Lady Lilith onto the field, and then all of a sudden, bang, killed like 4 things. It was surprisingly effective. So maybe there's, you know, room in here to add another Lady Lilith, and maybe get rid of 2 Frame Elder, add in 1 Tidus, add in 1 Lady Lilith, get rid of Shuzelt, add in another Sky Serpent. You could maybe take him out and have something different in there. But I quite liked it, to be perfectly honest with you. And again, he is actually quite hard to get rid of, and his S ability ain't nothing to be sneezed at. It's kind of an alternative to Lady Lilith's effect, because Lady Lilith, you can pay 2 crystals and kill something of 5 or less, whereas you obviously can pay the crystal with Glaciella on the field, and then a lightning and something else. So the crystal being equivalent to 2 CP, which is pretty consistent, is quite nice. But the fact that gets you back a crystal is really nice. So theoretically, so long as you have 2 CP, including lightning, and Glaciella on the field, you can keep on breaking things with repeatedly, and just go 2 CP and a crystal, kill that thing, get the crystal back. 2 CP and a crystal, kill something, get the crystal back, and rinse and repeat until you board wipe, theoretically. And if your opponent's got 4 forwards, that is 8 CP. Obviously, they have to be 5 CP or less as well, the forwards themselves. But 8 CP to get rid of 4 forwards on your opponent's field isn't that bad. And to actually have only ever paid, technically, 1 crystal for all of that, yeah, I'm alright with that. Anyway, yeah, like I said, this deck has a lot of fun. It needs some working. There are some glaring, I guess, issues with it. But ultimately, it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoy playing it. Doesn't always operate as you would like, but that's just the nature of haste, right? It's quite fragile. If your opponent can stall you for a turn or 2, chances are you've lost steam and you've lost the game. But if you can go ham and kind of come out of nowhere with a haste, Sky Serpent, Young Excenmille, Lightning, Ramada, start dealing loads of damage in one go, then, you know, it's actually quite fun. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay safe, be lucky, and I'll see you in the next video.